During World War II, Nazi concentration camps weren't just places of imprisonment and extermination. They also became laboratories for inhumane scientific experiments. The Third Reich, led by Adolf Hitler, tried to justify its racist theories and improve the efficiency of its soldiers through cruel experiments that disregarded any ethical code. These experiments, which left a permanent stain on human history, were carried out on innocent prisoners. They were forced to suffer and die in the name of a twisted science. Among those responsible for these horrors, Josef Mengele stands out. He was a doctor who worked at Auschwitz, nicknamed the Angel of Death. Mengele was obsessed with genetics and saw twins as a key to studying and manipulating the human race. His experiments were brutal. Twins were subjected to injections of chemical substances, dissected alive and mutilated, all to satisfy his thirst for knowledge. His cruelty knew no bounds, and yet to the Nazis, Mengele was a cutting-edge scientist. But Mengele wasn't the only one. In the concentration camps, prisoners were used as guinea pigs for experiments aimed at understanding how the human body reacted to extreme conditions. One of the cruelest experiments was the freezing experiment. Prisoners were submerged in ice-cold water or left exposed to the cold air to study how long the human body could survive in freezing conditions. The Nazi regime wanted to find ways to prolong the lives of its soldiers on the Eastern Front, but these experiments only led to slow and painful deaths. The victims, after being subjected to hours of agony, were often left to die without any significant results being collected. Other experiments involved atmospheric pressure. Prisoners were locked in hyperbaric chambers to simulate extreme high-altitude conditions. Many of them died of suffocation or their bodies exploded due to the pressure changes. These tests were intended to improve the flight conditions of German pilots, but they resulted in inhumane atrocities inflicted on innocent people. One of the most chilling aspects of these experiments was the use of infectious diseases. Prisoners were deliberately infected with typhus, malaria, tuberculosis, and other diseases. The goal was to study how the body reacted without proper treatment, but for the prisoners, it only meant suffering and death. Some experiments also involved mass sterilization. The Nazis were looking for methods to sterilize millions of undesirable people, such as Jews and Roma, through radiation or chemical injections. These cruel acts were nothing more than attempts to wipe out entire ethnic groups. The end of the war brought these atrocities to light. During the Nuremberg Trials, many of the doctors responsible for these experiments were convicted of crimes against humanity. However, some of the research conducted, as horrific as it was later studied for medical advancements. This raises one of the most difficult questions in the history of science. How far can research go when human rights are violated? The Nazi experiments remain a chilling reminder. Science, when not guided by ethics, can become a tool of torture. These experiments remind us that progress must always be balanced with respect for human dignity, and that research can never justify cruelty.